Hi everyone, I'm really excited to share this video with you today because I'm going to tell you a personal story about our family history and what we discovered with DNA testing. So this is my grandpa Wilfred. He approached me in early 2023. He knew what I was doing with DNA testing and some of the work that I was doing. And unbeknownst to me, we had a family mystery that had been kind of passed down through the generations that his grandmother, Emma Bartunek, was not biologically a Bartunek, that she had a different biological father than we were led to believe. So this is Emma in an undated photo. It looks like she's about a teenager here, but basically the story went that she was born in Abbey, Nebraska in 1880, and we all thought, up until now, that her father was John Bartunek, which is the husband of her mother, Lucy Shonka. But my grandpa said that there was a story and a rumor that was kind of passed down in town that her biological father was actually a man named Frank Zima, and that he was from Abbey, and he died in a dance hall fight in the mid 1800s. So this is my family tree according to government records and what we were told. So I'm at the bottom here. We have my dad, Scott, his father, Wilfred. Frank Somick is the father of Wilfred, and then Emma Bartunek there is second from the top, and then she is the daughter of John Bartunek. So in all the research that I had done, we had numerous government records that were supporting the fact that Emma was a Bartunek. Here, if you look, this is Emma's marriage record to her husband, John Somick. It lists her as Emma Bartunek, and it lists both of her parents as John Bartunek and Lucy Shonka. This is a census record here from, I believe, 1890, and it lists her living with her grandparents next door, and then you have John Bartunek, her father, her mom, Lucy Shonka, and a few of her siblings living together in Abbey. And even a lot later in life, in the 60s, when her son died, this is his obituary, and in the bottom, it lists him as the child of John Somick and Emma Bartunek again. So I felt pretty confident in my research that this rumor was not going to be true, but I told my grandpa, absolutely, let's test his DNA. He is much closer in relation to Emma. So even though I had tested, I thought we had a better chance of going back that far if we tested him. So in the meantime, while I was waiting for those results to come in, I decided to do a little bit of research on Frank Zima. And I figured that if someone died in a fight in the 1800s in Abbey, there was going to be some information about it. And not to my surprise, there is another genealogist here in Nebraska whose grandson descended from the Zima family, and she had done a ton of work on him and his family, and she had a very wonderful magazine article written in a genealogy magazine about Frank Zima and his death. So it turns out my grandpa had the story a little bit wrong. Frank Zima Jr. was actually the man that was presumed to be Emma's father, and it was his father, Frank Sr., that died in a fight at a dance hall. So based on the research that I have from a fellow genealogist, from what I can gather about Frank Jr. and Frank Sr., is they were definitely the type of guys that would be expected to get into a fight. It sounds like they were very good-looking men. They had kind of a wild life, lots of friends, and they were the type that would get into drinking kind of heavily and then get into some fights around town. On this particular night, it was actually Frank Zima Jr.'s wedding to his wife, Catherine, and it sounds like Frank Sr. was at the Abbey Dance Hall during the reception, and he exchanged words with some other men that were younger than him. A fight broke out, and he was hit over the head with a beer bottle, and a couple days later, he died at a hospital in Butler County. So right after I finished doing this research, my grandpa's DNA results came in, and I just fully expected to see these results and just see lots of Bartuneks, because I just didn't really believe that this could be something that we had been told one thing for about 140 years and that it was going to be completely opposite. And I was 100% proven wrong. When I got my grandfather's DNA results, there were no Bartuneks in those DNA match lists. it was full of Zimas. So we took his 4 top matches to the Zima family, and I identified them, and I began building back their family trees. And lo and behold, they all went back to Frank Zima Jr. and Frank Sr. And so once we put that shared DNA amount into a family tree, worked the numbers and everything, it was pretty concrete evidence that my great-great-grandmother Emma Bartunek was actually a Zima. So I went back to this genealogist that had done all of the research and asked her if she had any documentation or if she had heard anything about this so that we could have a source to prove this connection. And wouldn't you know, she is very good at what she does, and she had a marriage record for Frank Zima Jr. and Lucy Shanka, who is Emma's mother, from May of 1880. So this right here proves Emma was born in March of 1880. They likely had a relationship outside of marriage, and 2 months after Emma was born, Lucy and Frank were married in Butler County, according to this document. Now, what's interesting is Emma's born in March, they get married in May, and by June of the 1880 census, Lucy is back using her maiden name, Lucy Shanka, and living with her parents in Abbey, Nebraska. I had seen this record numerous times. I knew it was there, but I just assumed maybe John was away. He wasn't there for the census. Later in the 1890 census, they are living with Lucy's parents, so I just assumed maybe he wasn't there to get caught. What's interesting is if you look at this very bottom here, Emma is listed as being 2 months old, and something I had never noticed before is in very, very faint writing right by that arrow, it says her last name is Zima. And another thing that I didn't notice until later, because I didn't have a name, I wasn't looking for anything, is if you look at the very top of this census, Frank Jr. is living with his parents about 3 houses down from Lucy. So this is an undated photo of Lucy, likely when she was a little bit older in life. But I think with the DNA matches that we have and now the records that we found, I think the likeliest scenario is that Lucy was living with her parents as a teenager. Frank was right down the road, 2 houses down, living with his parents, and they likely had a relationship outside of their marriage. It resulted in Lucy becoming pregnant with Emma, and for whatever reason, they married quickly, and then it was likely quickly annulled. If we're to believe the research and the stories that were kind of passed down, it sounds like Frank was a very charming kind of bad boy. Sounds like he was very good looking. So I'm not surprised that Lucy just fell in love with her neighbor down the street and ended up having a child with him. But maybe because of his different lifestyle and, the things that he was into, that marriage just didn't work out. So this is the updated family tree that we have. As you can see at the very top, I have now confirmed through DNA and records that it is 100% likely that Frank Zima Jr. is the father of Emma Bartunek. So what we learn from this is a perfect example of people telling one thing on documentation and it just being passed down and being believed and believed and believed. And now DNA has really been a game changer to, like I said, either confirm or deny that those things occurred. Lucy went on to marry John Bartunek when Emma was a couple years old, and I think back then he likely didn't legally adopt her, but he became her father. He's the man that raised her, and she assumed his last name. What's really interesting about this is Emma was one of 12 children that was born to John and Lucy. And now that we know, those are her half-siblings, but now that we know with her connection to Frank Zima, he had 11 children. So it turns out our family just grew exponentially just by what we discovered. So what's really cool about this is you're never too old to DNA test. I think it's really cool that we were able to take my grandfather, who was the 90-year-old grandson of Emma Bartunek. We tested him in 2023. She was born in 1880. And utilizing his DNA, we were able to finally get an answer for a 140-year-old mystery. It was something I was really proud to tell my grandpa about because it was something that we could do together, and it was something that he had really wondered about a long time. Please reach out if you have a family mystery and let's get it solved.